Patreon.com/the Walk Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
But let's get into Corbin Burnes and the lack of love showed for him by his Milwaukee Brewers. Listen, arbitration.
Hey. Check it out. Because I'm proud of this one. Name of this segment: Arbitration. Corbin burned.
Hey, that's why you're the best co-host in the biz, Buzz.
Stayed up all morning working on that one. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
A pun among puns. There we go. Okay, so arbitration hearings. I mean, we talk about this all the time, man, right? They're part of the game. But I just don't feel like that's just such a blanket statement, right? Like it doesn't mean every case is equal or that they are handled or will be treated like business as usual by everyone. You know, like news came out yesterday that Corbin Burnes felt, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he felt basically completely disrespected.
He felt burned, if you will.
He felt burned, if you will. So the Brewers and Burnes were, and this is what blows my mind, man. They were only $750,000 apart.
I know.
Like it's not like the Bo and the Blue Jays arbitration numbers where it was $2.5 million, where it was 5 to 7.5, right? Where it was like 1/3 of a difference. Like we're talking a minor league contract here. We're talking the league minimum is what they were fighting over. And the Brewers did win this hearing. Okay, so the arbiter agreeing with their proposed 2023 salary of $10.01 million rather than Burnes' number of $10.75 million. So they are saving that $74,000.
I'm sorry, but also 10.01 is such a petty number to throw out.
Isn't it?
Oh my
Isn't
God.
It?
No, you're worth more than 10 million. 10.01.
So I think way more than the number. What upset Burnes and got under his skin was how the Brewers went about it in the argument. And one of the big things that he said, and again, I'm more or less paraphrasing, but there's video of this all over the internet. You don't have to go far to find it. So basically he said that they pinned them missing the playoffs on his final few starts of the year, which, I mean, if you watch what the Brewers did at the trade deadline, I don't know how the fuck you can figure that. Like they traded literally the best reliever of the last 5 years. I don't get it, man. I just don't understand the reasoning here, right? Like, and I know that Josh Hader struggled out of the gate with the Padres, but he was also his dominant self in the playoffs, which is what you want a pitcher like that for. And if you look back in history, Blue Jays fans have seen a deterioration similar to this in relationships because of arbitration before. And we're talking Marcus Stroman, right? Who had a great relationship with the Blue Jays early on in his career. Dude, he still has the skyline of Toronto tattooed on his abdomen, right? Like he was all in on the Blue Jays. And then he got picked apart in arbitration. And yes, again, it's really easy to say that these guys are soft. But in my opinion, if you want to maintain a good relationship with your homegrown talent, right? If you want to maintain a relationship with the guys that you're drafting and you're developing and you're building a core with, then maybe it's worth it to do what the Jays did in locking up Bo. And I think that there's huge benefits to that way beyond maybe we can still sign him. Right? Like there's dissent in the dressing room. It grows fast, especially if it has something to do with a star player like Burnes or Bo, right? Like a guy with deep roots within the organization who all of a sudden feels slighted, right? That can spread. But this is the thing I wanted to bring up is I just feel like the Brewers and the Blue Jays are so polar opposite with what they're doing as organizations.
Right. Well, I do want to touch on the fact that, I mean, I don't know if you saw Bo Bichette's little interview I don't know what the right word is for this.
Yes.
He's in front of the blue paper, microphones in his face. How you feeling? He seemed chipper.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? He sounded perky.
Yeah.
He was happy. He's got money in the bank. It's good to see. I'm, again, toxic positivity here. Very encouraged for that relationship again, I'm not saying that a long-term deal, 7, 10, 15 years is going to happen this
No.
offseason, but we at least we've gone from a position of like 3 more years of going into arbitration being like, "Hey, the reason we missed the playoffs is because Bo Bichette went 0 for 16 in the final series against the Yankees. He really let us down." Right? From those sorts of comments to like, we just don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's such a substantial swing in the relationship, goodwill, and all that, blah, blah, blah. So that's some real positivity. Corbin Burnes.
You know what I think it is, dude? I honestly believe the Milwaukee Brewers have zero intention of trying to retain Corbin Burnes. In fact, I think
Right.
it's very possible Burnes is gone this trade deadline. And if not this trade deadline, maybe next year when he's only got 2 years left. And this is Brewers baseball 101. They never go out and lock up their big talent, right? They don't. The most money that they have spent is acquiring Christian Yelich, pretty much.
Milwaukee Brewers payroll right now, they are 19th in baseball, around 104 million.
And they're always a playoff contender. And the reason they are a playoff contender is because of shrewd business moves like this. However, I do want to say there is negative aspects to operating this way. And even if Bo Bichette walks, okay, even if Bo Bichette at the end of his new extension deal that bought out his ARB years goes to free agency and becomes a Texas Ranger, and now the Rangers finally have those 4 shortstops they've always wanted.
Well done.
Even if he does walk, okay, I think that what it does is send a message to the rest of the players in that clubhouse that they do want to lock up their long-term talent, right? That they do want, like, this may not work out for Bo, but it may work out down the road for the Blue Jays with Ricky Tiedemann,
Right.
right? Where
It's the opposite of what
they have
happened
showed
with
a
Boston,
pattern.
right?
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
they lost out with Mookie Betts and how that relationship was handled. Had no choice but to trade him away, essentially. The
This is where
Bogarts
we're very lucky,
departing for the
man.
Padres, and then they had to. I don't know. Did they overpay on Devers? I don't know. I don't want to say overpay, but it felt like they really had to
Yeah.
make that happen. Like whether or not it's an overpay, he certainly had leverage in those
Yes.
negotiations, right?
Yes.
The fan
He
base
really
would
did.
have revolted
And
if
we're
he had
close
have
to doing
also
so.
left. So
Yeah.
they did definitely painted themselves into a pickle. And so yeah, you're right. I mean, whether or not this leads to Bo being a Blue Jay for life or not, it's encouraging for Ricky Tiedemann or even Alek Manoah's negotiations, which are going to
100%.
come sooner.
100%.
So
And it's really impressive to me to watch the Blue Jays go down that route, right? Because there was all the rumors that there was dissent with Bichette and the relationship was souring. And to see them get a deal done is a big deal. I think when it comes to the Brewers, they're like, we talked about it. It was only a minor league, it was a league minimum player, but they're going to use that for exactly that.
yeah,
This is how they continue to be perennial contenders, is that they are a shrewd small market team. And yeah, it hurts Brewers fans and they hate to watch it, but they're used to it. Brandon Woodruff is going to be traded this year, almost for sure, especially if they are out of the playoffs come trade deadline.
Joel and I talked on Wednesday about the spirit of Moneyball being the like bucking the trend,
Mm-hmm.
outside the box approaches, right? And how what Alex Anthopoulos is doing in Atlanta is kind of like the new Moneyball of like, get these guys in their first
Yeah.
year. Hey, you've played 50 games. They looked great. Clearly you can hang up here. Here's 11 million a year for the next 25 years or, whatever.
yeah.
Something absurd, and get them locked up. That may be an approach that Milwaukee is going to have to do, or not have to do, but I think Milwaukee is a prime candidate as far as teams go to adopt that approach. Like we saw the Rays kind of do it with Wander Franco, although I still think the way that contract is structured, it kind of leads to we'll pay you for cheap for the first 3 years and then we'll trade you off, and we're not ever going to pay the the real money at the end of your
The
contract.
real money at the end of the contract that we've all backloaded the
But the
majority of it.
Brewers spending 100 million, they're not the Oakland A's. Like they do
Yeah.
have money to spend, and if they do it in an efficient way, and next year, this year, whenever they trade Corbin Burnes, one of the best pitchers in baseball, away, they're gonna get a haul back for him. If
And
you're
this is
trading
the
away a
thing.
Cy Young winner who's
Yeah.
um
Like, you're
what's
nailing it,
his
dude, because I really do believe that even if this relationship is soured, and even if Burns isn't the pitcher that he was the last since 2017, and he has a down season, they're still going to get max value for him at the trade deadline.
for sure someone will for sure overpay or just pay an absolute haul, and then that next wave may be the opportunity of, hey, we
Then they
got the
take
next
that
that
$750,000 they saved on Burns and they plug it
yeah,
into a guy they're
exactly
calling
right.
up as a prospect. Yeah.
Exactly. So, all right. Anything else to add on this Corbin Burns situation? I mean, it was cringy to watch
Mhm.
his presser where they were
Yeah.
asking, and he kind of just revealed, like, yeah, that, I mean, it's business, but they didn't really have to say all that.
Yeah.
It did seem
Yeah.
like a little bit of an excessive attack. But funny thing with the arbitration process is the arbitrator is not a baseball, like it is just a,
Yeah.
it is a,
Numbers guy. It's a
it's
numbers guy who's
it's
going
a
through comparables.
workers arbitration, so it is not a, you have to break it down like that, right? To someone who maybe isn't a baseball fan and doesn't appreciate the, you
You
gotta
know
give
what?
context.
The last thing I will say about the Blue Jays locking up Bo Bichette is if you look at their comparable, which was probably Kyle Tucker is the closest comparable when it comes to the arbitration numbers, the gap, right? And Kyle Tucker, same thing. Astros put out 5 million, Tucker put out 7.5, and Tucker actually lost that arbitration hearing. So
Mhm.
I think Bo probably would have lost that hearing, and maybe he even knew that going in, and very similar to how he left 20 plus thousand on the table last year because he didn't like the way the Blue Jays used their evaluation. It might have been almost I'm going to get all this back in free agency. I've just got to hold my ground. And so giving him that money up front like that really is going to improve the relationship and just the way the other Blue Jays players view this organization. But we'll leave it at that. It is a positive thing, the Blue Jays locking up Bo Bichette. Not locking him up, but extending him and buying out his ARB years.
Absolutely.